Is he a good fuck?
Don't do this.
Just answer the question. Is he good?
Yes.
Better than me?
Different.
Better?
Gentler.
What does that mean?
You know what it means.
Tell me.
No.
I treat you like a whore.
Sometimes.
Why would that be?
I'm sorry you were...
Don't say it! Don't you fucking say you're too good for me. I am, but don't say it. You're making the mistake of your life. You're leaving me because you believe that you don't deserve happiness, but you do, Anna. Did you have a bath because you had sex with him? So you wouldn't smell of him? So you'd feel less guilty? How do you feel?
Guilty.
Did you ever love me? Did you do it here?
No.
Why not?
Do you wish we did?
Just tell me the truth.
Yes, we did it here.
Where?
There.
On this? We had our first fuck on this. Did you think of me? When? When did you do it here? Answer the question!
This evening.
Did you come?
Why are you doing this?
Because I want to know.
Yes, I came.
How many times?
Twice.
How?
First you went down on me, and then we fucked.
Who was where?
I was on top, and then he fucked me from behind.
And that's when you came the second time.
Why is the sex so important?
Because I'm a fucking caveman! Did you touch yourself while he fucked you?
Yes.
You wank for him?
Sometimes.
And he does?
We do everything that people who have sex do.
You enjoy sucking him off?
Yes.
You like his cock?
I love it.
You like him coming in your face?
Yes.
What does it taste like?
It tastes like you, but sweeter.
That's the spirit. Thank you. Thank you for your honesty. Now fuck off and done.
Some always will, some never will, and most people are somewhere in between, right? That's pretty much my take on an individual's capacity for sexual duplicity, right? When someone is a cheater, like when they're in a long-term relationship, especially one that has a monogamous context, and then they step out on that person. Some people always will, no matter what. Now, that type of person can either seek out some type of non-monogamous arrangement, right? And try to be honest about that pretty much from the beginning, right? Another person will simply lie about it or lie to themselves and then cheat no matter what happens. It's just they can't help it. And some people are just damaged, right? They still cling to the idea of monogamy, but their actions and behaviors are so separated from it that they're pretty much delusional. So no matter what they're going to cheat, they're going to find a reason to cheat. All right? And there's some people who never will, no matter what. Now, part of the reason being, they may be the type of individual who will either be honest about the fact that they will deal with other people, so there's no deception in place. It may be someone who is a serial monogamist, but they'll always leave before they deal with someone else. Right? It may be a person who's naturally monogamous. Right? Right, they have a monogamy orientation, which means that just their natural sexual practices outside of just some crazy traumatic experiences for them would be that they would prefer to just be having sex with one person at a time. That's a naturally monogamous individual. Or not naturally monogamous, monogamy oriented. Then there are people who just have a very low sex drive. And the amount of sex that they have with their partner is so much to the place where they can barely keep up with their partner, and their character is pretty decent, so they just don't betray that trust. You know, if they have sex with their partner meets their needs, they're like, all right, cool. It's much higher than mine. I don't have the energy to be dealing with multiple people. Now, this movie, Closer, is a great example of perhaps the people who are in between, right? I love the nuances of this type of dynamic, these type of conversations, these type of movies and films, right? Because I learned some powerful shit watching this movie. I'm gonna be honest with you. The first time I watched this particular film, or the first time I saw a clip of it or heard of it, was on a video by Alan Roger Curry. I don't remember the exact name of it. But in a particular video, he was talking about how most men cannot handle a woman's true sexual nature. That was somewhat like the context of the video. So within that video, he was using that scene mostly to trigger cognitive dissonance and visceral pain and hurt onto blue-pilled men who may be, arguing with his content that he disagreed with, right? One thing that you'll often notice about dating coaches and different types of guys in these sectors is that when they get frustrated, and I could probably say we, because it's not that I've never done it before. It's like when they get frustrated, the go-to is to expose different aspects of female sexual nature that someone argues with, right? Because let's say an individual is saying, no, a woman wouldn't go for that. A woman wouldn't do that. A woman would never do that. That's a very rare woman. That's not the type of woman that I'm with. And they always, have this mindset of feeling like the woman that they're with is some special unicorn who's contrary and separate from female sexual nature. Right? But in doing this, they're doing themselves a disservice a lot of the times. So when you try to speak logic to them or reality to them, oftentimes that doesn't work. So it kind of turns into the trigger Olympics, right? That's what I call it. So you seek to trigger the man by exposing him to the behaviors that led to him seeking out red pill content, right? But takes it further than he thought it would go. Because most men who may be watching Alan Roger Curry in the first place are men who are watching because either they already resonate with his experiences in the content, right? Or because they admire it and they would like to be able to move in some ways that he moves, so they listen to his opinion in his content. Of course, there are women there too. But ironically, most of the people who disagree are men. Mostly men who either believe in being emotionally or financially or socially transactional about sex. And the cognitive dissonance that they experience comes from the place of viewing their looks, money, status as something that should entitle them to receiving a certain level of treatment from women. So when a man who doesn't possess the same amount of money or the same amount of social status isn't offering the same level of a relationship, of a commitment, of monogamy or marriage, of dates, of money, is having more access to the women that he wants to have access to him sexually, emotionally, financially. When these particular type of things take place, it creates cognitive dissonance. And the only way that these men can deal with these type of cognitive dissonance moments is to vilify that man. And that's where the Pookie and Ray Ray thing comes from. Not that there aren't negatives that come with some Pookies and Ray Rays. Because there are definitely some that put women's lives in danger, put women's health in danger, have no sexual responsibility and make babies and keep it pushing, right? May steal from women. I've heard dudes literally say that they've stolen from women before, but they'll go and have sex with her, have somebody else come in and steal from her. Might pimp her out, even if that's not what she was thinking she wanted to do before she met him, right? Or may lie about wanting a relationship to do it, but his lies are more effective than yours, right? And those are things that can happen, right? Those are just things that happen. Those things that can come along with Pookies and Ray Rays. But there's one aspect of Pookies and Ray Rays. It really is more than one, but there's definitely one aspect that has to be understood. Female sexual nature. It's not just about hypergamy and all that other shit. Sometimes a woman just needs her back beat in. Real shit. Sometimes a woman just wants to feel that dominance. Sometimes a woman just wants to feel that a man isn't overly emotionally invested in her. Sometimes a woman wants to feel mystery, right? Sometimes a woman is in a space where she respects emotional discipline and this other aspect that I'm about to bring up more than anything else, right? So what is this aspect? Emotional safety. Now, I don't necessarily mean safety like literal physical safety, and not even necessarily emotional safety, but intimacy, right? And you know the colloquial thing everybody always says, intimacy, right? When a woman is sexually available to a man who sees beyond her social mask, right? Sees beyond that image that she portrays of herself in the outside world, and she's intimate to that guy, there's a certain feminine submissiveness, a certain loyalty. It may not be a forever loyalty, but a certain loyalty that takes place to where if that is a monogamy-oriented woman who has a capacity, right, for monogamy, and that's really her primary mode of wanting to engage, then when she's dealing with other men, typically is going to create there's certain that's going to happen, right? Especially if sex is connected to emotions for it. That's a big part of being monogamy-oriented, and one of the greatest benefits of being monogamy-oriented, right? It's the way that it can kind of integrate with the rest of your life instead of having to separate it, which can lessen the amount of pleasure that you experience and lessen how far you're able or willing to be taken, right? But there's an intimacy factor, right? Now, one thing to understand is this. When it comes to cheating, oftentimes what makes it so arousing sometimes comes from what I call a daddy versus father effect, or psychological reactance, right? When you want to rebel against a feeling of a loss of autonomy or agency, which means that a woman doesn't feel comfortable communicating with you and telling you how she really feels about things. And you got to know what type of woman you're dealing with, right? Because one thing you have to understand is that there's a certain point where a certain type of woman, she will want you to prove your masculinity through your ability to endure things that could otherwise be very painful to your ego. Right? Very important concept to understand, right? Like when we see Will Smith and Jada Pinkett, and we see these different type of scenarios, oftentimes it's a man who wants to prove himself to a woman, but he wants to do it through his success. But oftentimes he has to also prove it through his ability to be forgiving, accepting, understanding, to still protect the woman, to still provide the woman, to still be there for her, and to pretty much treat her mistake as if it was his mistake when she goes out and cheats on him or breaks their arrangement in whatever way that they have it set up. But oftentimes these things are about a certain level of emotional and sexual intimacy.
Love is simple. You think the heart is like a diagram.
Have you ever seen a human heart? It looks like a fist wrapped in blood. Go f yourself, you writer! You liar! You go check a few facts while I get my hands dirty.
She hates your hands. She hates your simplicity.
Listen, I spent the whole of the last week talking about you. I know all your little ways. Anna tells me you're with your eyes closed. She tells me you wake in the night crying for your mother, your mummy's boy. I could go on. Should we stop this? It's over. Accept it. You don't know the first thing about love because you don't understand compromise. Don't cry on me.
I'm sorry. I don't know what to do.
You want my advice? You go back to Alice.
She'd never have me. She's vanished.
No, she hasn't. I found her by accident. She's working in a club. Yes, I saw her naked. No, I did not her.
Oh, you spoke to her?
Yes, I know. 1 minute.
How is she?
She loves you beyond comprehension. Your prescription. It's where she works. Go to her.
Thank you.
You're still pissing about on the net?
Not recently.
I wanted to kill you.
What, you wanted to me?
Don't get lippy. I like your book, by the way.
Thanks. You stand alone.
With Anna. You're still writing obituaries. Busy?
I was made editor.
Yeah? How come?
Previous editor died. Alcohol poisoning. I sat with him for a week in the hospital.
I really do have patience to see.
Thank you.
But what?
Being kind.
I am kind. Your invoice is in the post. Dan. I lied to you. I did Alice. Sorry for telling you. I'm just not big enough to forgive you.
The person who knows the most, and the woman is still sexually attached to them. That's the person who has her mind, her body, and probably her heart at the time. Not always, but oftentimes. The person who sees the furthest behind her social mask to see what she believes is the real her. Because people are nuanced and people are multifaceted. So sometimes you can get to know somebody very deep on one level, but there's a full spectrum of things that make up who they are. So when you only get to know them on one level, unless you know how to permeate out from that level into the other areas where her shadow may be, to see the not so savory aspect of her behind the mask, then oftentimes another person who can hit directly on these particular areas and knows how to permeate out has the ability to usurp that place of attachment, to usurp that place of authority. And oftentimes sex is not what does it, but it's sealed with sex, right? All it takes is for a slightly different experience or a better experience, right? One that takes her a little bit further emotionally, whether it's either further emotionally through how intimate it is, or whether it's further sexually through how raw and taboo it is. Taboo is often a big part. How mysterious the guy is. Sometimes it's about feeling frustrated with her partner and how she's seen and feeling like this is someone who's giving her quality validation, right? And her hand got caught in the cookie jar. Sometimes it's about the teasing, the play of seduction, right? That's a big part of it, because she doesn't feel seduced by her man anymore. And another part of it sometimes can boil down to size. I'm sorry to tell y'all, but it's a real thing. If you honest, you probably been on both sides of that conundrum, whether it was for the bigger or the smaller or the different shape, whatever it was. Some men say they don't have those conversations, but me, watching this movie let me know that I wasn't completely off about liking to know certain information, right? That's what it let me know. And also I'll say this too, sometimes that deeper level of emotional aspect of the intimacy with the sex is really about the lack of intimacy, where the woman gets the freedom to be emotional because she's being dominated. So that's another aspect. So sometimes it's more about the emotional intimacy of making love, and sometimes it's more so about the emotional experience of losing control and being dominated. Like, I know people in like swinger relationships and whatnot, where the woman can do whatever she wants to do, but she doesn't want another man other than her husband dominating her, right? See, that's a different type of dynamic, right? Because I think oftentimes people do gaslight or play the victim about certain contexts and scenarios where there are particular boundaries on relationships, right? But sometimes those boundaries are for a reason that benefit both parties, right? And sometimes some people have enough self-awareness to say, you know what? Even if I am allowed to do this, I don't want to do this because it might change the way I feel about them, and I like the way I feel about them. Or they just get turned off to other people doing those same things. Just something to think about. Sometimes it is connected to different aspects of things that are directly sexual. These are things that really do happen. Like, I've heard women who came to me, conversations, they was dating a guy, and they liked the guy a lot. He was real good to them, but they're like, they wish they had a bigger dick. Yeah, something that happens. Or, they wish they were having more sex, and they're not really having sex anymore. And something that can happen in particular scenarios is this. Once another man that woman is attracted to, who piques her interest, is in a position of knowing more about your relationship dynamic or her true feelings than you do, then it's pretty much the clock is ticking. Because her curiosity has been piqued in a way to where all that has to happen is she has to just find an excuse about how you're behaving, or get enough plausible deniability, sometimes like the work husband stuff, but enough plausible deniability, like there's several things that can happen to allow herself to be seduced in the way that she likes to be seduced. And if he knows how to do it, then next thing you know, she's gonna be fucking him. And if this different dynamic wasn't caught ahead of time, right? If those boundaries weren't in place to avoid that, if your realized chemistry wasn't greater than the curiosity, if you were complacent, if you ain't been on your shit as a man, If she's been telling you the same things that she needs from you for a long time and you just haven't been listening, and then another man comes along and offers that, and sometimes she don't even communicate it. Sometimes it's something she wants that she doesn't tell you that she thinks you should just know. And another man may talk to her, and that intimacy will bring her to a place where she feels like she's getting what she really wanted, even if it's only the idea of it, right? That's where dirty macking comes from, like the song Joe, right? The song All the Things Your Man Won't Do by Joe. Because he's really only offering the idea of that. Really only offering a weekend or a quick fling of overstimulation, of giving her a bunch of things that she doesn't deserve. Because if she deserved it, she wouldn't be entertaining him in the first place if she already has a man. And just having a good time with her, bringing the idea of a lifestyle that she's not going to be able to live consistently, even if she decided to be with him, into the scene. Now, a big part of what dirty macking relies on is the questioning of the leadership and masculinity of the primary man. That's what a lot of it is predicated upon. And one thing I say is this: I look at the nuances of situations, right? I've seen people who were married and cheating took place and they were able to correct their relationships, right? I've seen instances where sometimes it was the man's fault to a certain extent. Not completely his fault, but it was mostly his fault that things went left, although the woman was the one who made the wrong turn. I've seen instances where these things were corrected, they improved, and the people were happy together. So although in most instances cheating should be an automatic end of the person in the relationship and they're dead to you, that's not always the case. And I think a lot more men should be honest about that. And if you're a quote-unquote red pill and you understand female sexual nature and you understand the psychology of a woman and her sexuality, then you have to understand that validation is intrinsically connected to sex on a certain level. It's just connected. And once a woman is in a position where another man is closer to her as far as intimacy and there's attraction and sexual tension is there, then you cease to be the place where she desires the validation the most. How do you know? You know this is something that occurs, and a woman can know this within herself, and you know this within yourself if you're a monogamy-oriented man and you're dealing with multiple women. Right? If you have certain feminine qualities yourself to where you're more attracted to a challenge than somebody who gets on the program, then you reward bad behavior. You let curiosity be greater than realized chemistry, and let a new woman take the spot of where a woman who's already invested in you and showing you she's down for you, you're allowing her, the new woman, to jump over that because of the validation that you receive from that stroke of your ego.
Dan, can I still see you? Answer me.
I can't see you. If I see you, I'll never leave you.
What will you do if I find someone else?
Be jealous.
You still fancy me?
Of course.
You're lying. I've been you. Will you hold me? I amuse you, but I bore you.
No.
You did love me.
I always love you. I hate hurting you.
Why are you?
Because I'm selfish. And I think I'd be happier with her.
You won't. You'll miss me. No one will ever love you as much as I do. Why isn't love enough? I'm the one who leaves. I'm supposed to leave you. I'm the one who leaves. Make some tea, Buster.
Right? It's when you're messaging this woman and you get a text back and you get that little hit of dopamine, that little jump of joy, and then you look at your phone, that little anxiety, right, that limerence, and then you look at your phone and you want to see who are you thinking about that you want to be texting you back at that time. That's who has your attention. It's a similar thing that happens for women. It's a similar thing. And this is where boundaries are important, but also honesty and communication, right? And honest communication. But one thing I always say is this, it's best to either be that nigga or let her fuck that nigga in peace, right? Either be that nigga or let her fuck that nigga in peace. And what that basically means is this: it's a lot easier for a woman to be honest with you when she already knows she's giving you preferential treatment, right? What makes a woman feel uncomfortable about being honest about her sexual past is understanding that you are either a man or the type of man that she would withhold certain aspects of who she is to because she believes you're judgmental. See, one thing that I realized is that not everyone is worth the snatchback game, right? But it is still a tool that you want to have within your toolkit, within your skill set. You want to have the ability to snatch back there, right? But a lot of it is predicated upon emotional discipline, right? When somebody's dirty macking or someone's simping for a woman who you're dealing with and she may feel like she wants more, or you're dealing with a woman who, maybe somebody's getting in her ear and they're trying to sabotage what you got going on, sometimes what's going to happen is sometimes a woman will come talk to you, but sometimes she'll just start to feel like a less of trust for you. And a woman's trust is not predicated upon who's right, who's logical. A woman's trust and her femininity is going to lean towards whoever is the most solid between their beliefs, their actions, their words, whoever appears to be the most masculine, whoever is the strong force, whoever is the solid rock. Now, the thing about the dirty Mac is that they're already off their square, right? In most instances, there's someone who's already off their square. That's the first thing to understand, right? Because he's pursuing a woman who's already with another man. He already understands, or he doesn't understand, that he's going to have an inability to fully trust that woman. An inability to really trust her because he already knows that she can be taken from another man. She hasn't truly done anything that made her worthy of the efforts that he went in to pursue her. So he's very emotional. And in him being a very emotional type of man, he's really just looking for the challenge, the thrill of the chase, right? But if he's a very emotional type of man, then after he achieves that validation, he gets attached to that validation. And through getting attached to that validation, he wants to take that fling and turn it into something long-term. Now, the woman already doesn't fully trust that man, but she'll give him trust for a period of time to see, right? Just giving it's like the bait and switch. She's going to see if he's truly solid in who he is. So she's typically going to love bomb him, right? Just let that hurt go pussy, which may take her to a new level sexually, but it's often something that burns out. And if this is a woman who is worth snatching back to you, she added value to your life. You knew that you were off. You knew that you were tripping a little bit, right? You knew that it was a scenario where you got complacent and you needed to do more, and you should have, but you don't want to reward bad behavior necessarily. Then there's a way that you go about it. Now check this out.
You, please come back.
I'm not coming back. Sign.
No pen.
Pen. Give me back my hand. Sign.
I'll sign on one condition. We skip this, we go to my sleek new surgery, and we christen the patient's bed with our final fuck. I know you don't want to, and I know you think I'm sick for asking, but that's what I'm asking. For old time's sake. Because I'm obsessed with you. Because I can't get over you unless... Because I think on some small level you owe me something for deceiving me so exquisitely. For all these reasons, I am begging you to give me your body. You be my whore, and in return, I will pay you with your liberty. You do this, I swear I will not contact you again. I'm going to the bar. I assume you still drink vodka tonic?
It's two primary things that cause the woman to lose respect for you when she steps out. It's not just about the pleasure. Now, don't get me wrong. A higher level of pleasure increases it, right? A higher level of intimacy increases it. A higher level of dominance increases it. But what a lot of it is about is merely being able to connect that validation to that man because he's giving her a higher level of validation or a higher quantity. And that helps boost her self-esteem for a little while. But there's a drop-off for how much she pours out, so it really hurts her. But another aspect of it is this. And this is the other aspect of it. A lot of it is about who she's being intimate with, which is who she believes truly sees and understands her, but in a way where she still feels accepted. Or you're so solid that you can tap into the negative aspects of what she's done and what she's experienced, and you're not putting pressure on her, but what you're doing is you're taking that taboo feeling of her guilt and then you're making it sexual, creating tension, right? You're not putting pressure on her. What you're doing is you're taking that guilt that she feels that causes her to want to shy away from you, like Adam and Eve in the garden, right, with the forbidden fruit. That other man is the forbidden fruit. He's the snake who's spitting game. She got that forbidden fruit, but now she wants to cover herself, so she feels naked. She feels like to truly be seen for who she is around you, that, you know, to know the real her would be something that she doesn't want you to see the real her anymore because of her behaviors. So she has to protect herself. But she does that somewhat through vilifying you. Right? Understand that. So oftentimes the things she says the issues aren't really what the issues are. She's going to reflexively gaslight you. And oftentimes if she understands that the extent of how much she fucked up is too great of a burden of guilt for her to bear, then what she's going to do is, like I said, first vilify you, but she may just go ahead and cut you off and walk away. Because when she cuts you off and walks away, that's her way of trying to avoid and absolve herself of accountability. See, this man, he had this conversation with her and he got to the intimate details, right? He's like, yes, I'm a fucking caveman. He accepted the negative narrative that might come along with it. He expressed some of how he felt, but he still maintained a certain level of emotional discipline. But he got caught off guard. Sometimes you get caught off guard with shit. Like a woman can swear that she just fucking with you, right? And then that could be a girl or whatever it is. And that's the premise by which you're viewing her through, right? Because some people have just super bad trust issues to where they're just not going to trust anybody. So they're just always expecting the worst at all times. But then there's also some people who get too comfortable, too complacent. And they don't see certain things coming. They don't pick up on the signs. They don't pick up on the details. They don't pick up on a woman pulling away emotionally. So when it finally comes out, part of her feels mad at him because he didn't see her changing. Didn't catch it quick enough. Allowed her to go down that path. You can't stop somebody from doing what they want to do. But sometimes it's a scenario where if the woman knows the proper boundaries, or if you talk to her first, if you get to the intimate details of the scenario, you're talking to her, she understands, sometimes this shit can dissipate, right? See, What this man did was, after he had this conversation, he realized, okay, cool. She preferred the man sexually a little bit, but it was mostly the emotional charge of the scenario. After a little while with this guy, she's pretty much going to burn out. She's going to lose attraction to him because his ego was what caused him to pursue the woman in the first place. So, although he used the image and the idea of emotional discipline to degrade and erode and to chip at the woman's image of the solidity of her man and his masculine frame and his masculine energy, he vilified it. Said that he's a simple man. He doesn't really know this. He doesn't really know that. He doesn't really want to connect with you emotionally the way you want to be connected with. He doesn't want to play this game with you. And because of that, this isn't a man who can truly understand you. But because this man pursued this woman out of his ego was also open to bruising. So if you're ever in a position, like let's say you're married, it's a long-term situation, you know what I mean? There's things that you've built with this woman, you're not ready to let her go yet, and it's like you just accept that she's gone. But one thing that happened along these lines is that the man came to the woman, right? She didn't communicate with her man that that's what she was doing. It was a private meeting, which means that there's a certain aspect of information that her new man doesn't know, or that he knows. And if he doesn't show any signs of emotional weakness about this, see, really the best case scenario is that the woman just rejects the idea of meeting up with the man in the first place. That's the first best idea, right? That's the first best idea, is for her to just reject meeting up with him in the first place and to say, you know what, fuck it. We'll file this divorce. Whatever I get is whatever I get. I got a new man now, right? But instead, she linked up with him. And when she linked up with him, the man told her, you agree to sleep with me, then I'll make this divorce for you as easy and as simple as possible. She was acting like a whore, so he treated her like one. But he also seduced her along the way. It wasn't a matter of him merely just presenting her with a proposition. She missed what it felt like to feel him. So the man who dirty Mac and took his woman, he was unable to handle, right, doing the same thing happened to him that he did to her and him, right? He was unable to handle it. So seeing his lack of emotional discipline in these moments and certain scenarios occurring, which would lead to his ego being hurt and the woman no longer wanting to expose the real her to him. And it happened with both women. Both Anna and Alice both had this scenario with Dan, right? Because he had this inability to endure what was put out, or because he didn't catch when things was going left, and the women were starting to shift over to their focus being on another man, or that information was divulged to another man, that the intimacy that he didn't have. When he wanted to seek out the truth, the woman felt that they were being interrogated, right? They felt like he didn't trust them.
I don't love you anymore.
Since when?
Now. Just now. I don't want to lie. I can't tell the truth, so it's over.
It doesn't matter. I love you. None of it matters.
Too late. I don't love you anymore. Goodbye. Here's the truth. So now you can hate me. Larry me all night. I enjoyed it. I came. I prefer you. Now go.
I knew that. He told me.
You knew?
I needed to hear it from you.
Why?
Because he might have been lying. I had to hear it from you.
I would never have told you because I know you'd never forgive me.
I would. I have.
Why did he tell you?
Because he's a...
How could he?
Because he wanted this to happen.
But why test me?
Because I'm an idiot.
Yes. I would have loved you.
Now, you hear how backwards this is, right? But it's the thing to understand about female nature. Although they were lying to him, although they lied, they still lost trust in him for not trusting them, even though they were lying. Because for them, it was never about the man himself, but the idea of what the relationship meant in their mind. And the idea of the relationship can be smashed by either the man or by the woman. But once the intimacy is lost and the woman no longer feels comfortable expressing herself and being who she truly is, whether that's through something that the man said to her, a judgmental nature, a very egotistical way of doing things, and let's keep it bug, we all have egos, or through her own actions of breaking their arrangement, then unless that man is able to communicate that and get that information in a way that makes light of it, or in a way that takes a certain level of personal responsibility, or in a way that makes it a fun, playful thing to where you take the woman beyond that, or you've already taken her beyond that, then these conversations feel like an interrogation, like a daddy versus father effect, psychological reactions. A woman feels like she's being talked down to like a child. She feels like she's being reprimanded. She feels like she's losing her autonomy and her agency. She feels guilt, she feels shame, and she really just wants to forget about and not remember these type of occasions and conversations. Now, one thing I say is this right here. I like to know things, right? Now, that knowing that you have is something that you have to be able to separate your emotions from when you're receiving the information. You have to separate your ego from those safe spaces where you're getting the information that you need from a woman. Sometimes you can hear something that sounds bad on the surface, but when you really get beyond it, sometimes a woman will only say something that may be negative and hurtful towards you or towards your ego as a defense mechanism, because she feels like you're poking and prodding on her intimate business, on her personal business, right? So that's where a woman may then speak down on you sexually, even if truthfully she's more sexually satisfied by you than the other man. But for that period of time where her emotions are wrapped up in that thrill of the chase, where she's wrapped up in this newness, this novelty factor, this new relationship energy, this wild goose chase, she just feels better about it at that moment. You know, when a woman leaves out of that feminine submissive energy with you, she can forget whole sexual experiences she's had, like orgasms that she's had. She can forget that she's had orgasms. She can forget that she's had 30 in a night. She can forget that she's had crygasms. She can forget that she's squirted. She can forget that any experience. But if she had like one experience with a new guy that was just a little bit different from you, that she liked a little bit more, then that will be the focal point for that period of time. Right? Now, if you catch it right when it burns out, you let the woman go, right? And you catch it right when it starts to fizzle out, like the new compatibility she has with the new man, then you can slide back in. Use a little bit of that same plausible deniability that he used. And oftentimes what you'll see along the way, and what she'll see along the way, is that man isn't as solid, doesn't have as good a leadership skills as you do, that he doesn't have as much masculine frame and masculine energy as you do. And it's typically a man who is just not holding her accountable to anything. And that's the reason why she likes him at the moment, but it's not something that she can truly respect. It's not something she truly wants to follow. So if he's unable to handle the fact that she's coming to see you again, or she realizes that guy doesn't really want something serious like he thought he did, like she thought he did, or if the sex burns out and she realizes, you know what, you were a better lover, you know what I mean? If there's certain mistakes that he makes that you weren't making that start to annoy her, then all she has to do is have a conversation with you where she's divulging information. And through that conversation, a certain level of intrigue, curiosity, and intimacy is there, especially if she sees or believes that you've grown or gone on some type of journey of growth to where maybe some of the issues that you've previously had when you were dealing with one another, that you've taken personal accountability to begin solving them. But one thing I suggest is this: don't enter back into dealing with that woman from a place of equality. Don't do it. It's tax season, right? And tax season is a different thing, right? Because some men just believe in charging women to the game, right? Some men just believe in just charge the woman to the game, leave her alone. You know what I mean? The first moment she does something you don't like, just cut every woman off. Sometimes that's the best move. Most of the time that's the best move. But sometimes, it's a little bit more than that. So in them particular type of situations, you can't go back into the situation as if you're begging the woman, right? Because you have to understand is this: part of being solid as a man and being a masculine dominant versus a feminine dominant is what behavior you reward, right? So if you reward her pulling away from you emotionally by trying to pursue her emotionally, she feels a certain level of unsafe. And also she feels a level of distrust, because when she was putting her all into you, you weren't giving her this level of communication. You weren't giving her this level of intimacy. You weren't giving her this level of vulnerability and emotion. So she feels like you want to train her to get more from you emotionally through doing things that hurt your ego. You're rewarding bad behavior. But you can tax a woman by giving her just enough energy to where she desires it again, saying something that maybe arouses her or something that just makes her curious about you, then giving her some space. Taking a little bit of personal accountability, giving her some space. And then after you give her some space, you might contact her for some business purposes, or, because you may have some personal affairs tied into each other. If you don't have any type of personal affairs tied into each other, then this may not be the type of thing for you. Because sometimes you got some shit that's planned. It's, somebody came in, you didn't prepare your woman properly for the game that this other nigga would be trying to spit on her. So she just really was unprepared for what this situation would entail. Or maybe she just had some communication issues and wasn't able to express how she really felt with you. And that's something that can happen as well. So when that particular thing transpires, right, next step is when she comes back in, you tax her. The price goes up. Some people say, oh, no, that's bad. No, really, you want to give her the opportunity to show you and express a little bit of contriteness, right? Through how she shows you her devotion to still want to continue to deal with you. Like, I've had scenarios like that myself, right? I've personally had scenarios where I might have been dealing with a woman, things went a little left, you hit her back up, or, maybe, you see or talking to somebody new, and some people say it's some toxic shit. Oh, well. But, there's been scenarios I've had where it was a woman who I really liked. And it was just it was a communication problem. Because sometimes when a woman leaves out of a certain state of mind, her cup gets low. She speaks a completely different language from when she's in a higher state of feminine submissiveness, when she's in a state of her submissiveness being lubricated with her femininity, to the point where she understands your language, she speaks your language, and that's the way that you resolve conflict, that's the way you communicate, that's the way you deal with issues. So when she gets to a certain space where someone's in her ear, her cup gets low and she wants more than you're currently giving, or she just gets bored or whatever it is, then oftentimes something that can occur is that she'll switch to a language that you may feel is disrespectful. And in that place, if you don't have the proper emotional discipline, right, to either not respond or to know how to respond correctly, then, the situation may just end on the spot. That can happen sometimes. And it's just, you don't want to end a situation just over some argument or some bullshit like that. Because two people ain't going to get along 100% of the time. Not 100% of the time. Right? But you have to assess why she lost respect. And if part of why she lost respect is a lack of feeling emotionally safe, right, then you have to take a certain level of personal responsibility and accountability for it. So sometimes you might see a woman, she talking to another guy. You know how to plant a trap, plant a seed, catch her hand in the cookie jar, create their curiosity, and then understand that that other man, especially if she stopped talking to you, immediately started talking to someone else, or she was fucking with the other guy while you two were dealing with one another, oftentimes he won't be able to handle emotionally what you had to process. So that means that if you're able to catch her hand in the cookie jar, capitalize on it, have her come through, especially if she don't tell him, or if she does tell him and he can't handle it, he's blowing up her phone, where it feels like now she's being interrogated or judged, or she doesn't feel like she can be honest about what she wants to do and what's really going on, then oftentimes she'll lose emotional safety with him, lose respect for him, for not simply walking away as soon as she started giving that energy off that she was pulling away. And then after she comes and fucks with you, he's probably not going to be able to handle it emotionally, right? And maintain a certain level of composure. Not if he's trying to take her seriously, right? And when that particular type of thing occurs, you're pretty much right in there. All right, you just take her to another place sexually. You use that seduction, you tease her, but you also have to understand this right here too. How you get a woman is how you lose her, right? You have to tax her, get her investment right, but also improve the things that you messed up. And this right here is mostly something that you can practice just to have it in your skill, have it in your toolkit. Like, let's say some men, they go through a drought and the amount of women they're dealing with get low. Then if you know that you're going to hit up your ex, you know you're going to want to talk to her, you know you're going to want to fuck with her, then at least go about it in a way that has some game, right? Hitting her up, begging to see her again, blowing up her phone, doing all this extra shit, trying to take her out on a bunch of dates and trying to, pledge your fealty and swear how much you love her and want to be with her. All that shit just causes her to lose further respect for you. And most women aren't even going to take that, right? They're going to just lose outright respect for you because they no longer feel emotionally safe with you. The intimacy is gone. The intrigue is gone. She feels like she's figured you out. She understands you. She sees you as weak. She sees the weakness inside of you. And she doesn't have enough respect for you, and you're not integrated on a level to where she can still maintain her attraction and respect for you in that place. So you have to know how to launder, right? You have to know how to launder that game that you play into something that doesn't counteract what honesty is, or doesn't counteract what your morals and your character and standards are, how you live your life. Because after she leaves out of that state of mind of that high place of desire and attraction and arousal and that feminine submissive, just that desire to do something outside of the box, once she steps out of that zone, if her logical mind is unable to, and her intuition is unable to trust or respect you beyond that point, like nothing's changed, everything is the same, then eventually this won't work 1,000 times, right? This might work once, twice, a couple times, maybe a few times, but there's a limit to how many times you do it before a woman just has enough. And when she has enough, she's fed up. And when she's fed up, it's like, all right, cool, now you're really dead to her. And if you pursue her beyond that point, then everything simply just feels like pressure. Everything feels like begging. Everything feels like you want her too bad. And she gets turned off. She loses desire for you, attraction, respect, all those different things. So you have to understand that if you're going to use this, you have to use it properly, and understand that the next step is to make sure that foundation is set. You don't immediately jump back into something with the woman. You give her time to see if there's some shit she needs to get out her system still. You give her some time to get her mind right. You give her some time to see if she's going to get with the program. You may continue to deal with other women during that process, because that's part of what attracts her to you. You have clear instructions about what you're trying to do. You know where and when you need to have certain compromises, and understand the purpose of those things, and do it in a way that doesn't compromise your standards. Like, if you want to compromise something, have your standards be that what's best for us and what's best for me is what's important. If it's something that's best for her and is best for us, and she's somebody you're attached to, then you can make that compromise here and there, because you still benefit, because it benefits us. But if it only benefits her, then you don't compromise on that, right? And if it's something that only benefits you, but it doesn't benefit her or us, then you may have to be a little bit selfish for a little while so she sees you can be, but you don't have to stay that way forever. And there's a time limit on that as well. And but there has to be a way for the things that benefit you to benefit us, the way for the things that benefit her to benefit us, and just the relationship itself. And when she sees that, you know what, you were really the one who she was learning from, you were really the one who she was being satisfied by, you were really the one who she respected and wanted to serve, you're the one who she wanted to follow. When she is reminded of that, she's going to have a little contrite moment, right? Where she's going to think about what she did or didn't do. Because sometimes you can use the strategy I'm talking about, and if your timing is right, you can catch a woman before she fucks another guy, depending on what type of woman that she is, especially if she's monogamy oriented. But sometimes this type of thing is going to happen only after she's already fucked with somebody else, right? So if the dick was trash, it's going to be a lot easier. If it was real good, then it's going to take a little bit of time, right? And it just depends on how quickly she can see the lack of masculinity or leadership in the other guy, right? And how low her cup is too. Because if her cup gets real low, then she probably eventually is going to go celibate, right? But you have to set standards about pouring into her cup, because you don't want to pour into her cup if her cup gets low and she feels like eroded and she's kind of down on herself because of, you know, things she's done, and then you just want to go ahead and just pour into her cup. You know, doing that is an easy way to end up in the friend zone with a woman who you're already fucking with, because you're over communicating, you're giving her way too much validation for how good her behavior has been, so you're still rewarding bad behavior, which confirms that you're not as solid on who you say you are and what you want to do as you want to think that you are. And that's part of why she'll just eventually just lose interest for you altogether, lose respect for you. So, you know, I learned a lot from this movie, Closer, and I learned a lot from the different aspects of these relationship dynamics. And sometimes it's like, if you want to be real vindictive about it, especially if the dude who's trying to get your girl already has a girl, sometimes you can run game on his girl. Because if it's a dude who just chases after a challenge, and especially if he's kind of a monogamy oriented type of guy, like in this movie, he wasn't taking care of home, giving the attention, the time, the energy, the sex to his woman like he needed to, right? So those two ended up breaking up when he tried to, like when, you know, Alice and Dan ended up breaking up when Dan wanted to be with Anna. See, Dan wasn't real about the fact that he just wanted to be a player. He wasn't real about the fact that he wanted to do what he wanted to do. So, you know, he was kind of just playing with Alice. You know, that's something that can happen. It is. And I think he should have taken into account more how much she loved him. You know, he was emotionally overstimulated, and he needed that thrill of the chase. He needed that curiosity, but he wanted to turn that curiosity into something that's more long-term. And it takes a certain level of the game to be able to do that, and he didn't have that, right? Because he didn't have the emotional discipline to deal with taking some of the shit that he dished out when it comes to another man doing the same thing with the game when it comes to him, right? So, you know, Larry saw Alice in a strip club, paid her some money, tried to find out her real name, and it turns out that he was the only one who really knew her real name. Dan was in a relationship with Alice for 4 years. He never knew her real name. Right? Jane Jones was Alice's real name, and Larry was the one who knew it, but he had let that hurt go dick, right? That's a whole other concept, right? That's something that kind of gets you back in the game right there. And you know, he fucked Alice all night. She had a good time, but she still somewhat preferred Dan sexually. But it's just the fact that she compromised on that, or the fact that she had let that hurt go pussy with Dan. She was able to push that to the side for with Larry, but she was able to push that to the side for Dan. But the fact that Dan wanted to know the truth meant that the emotional intimacy and her safety around him was already gone. Right, so him wanting to know the truth, to her, she took that as emotional weakness, because he wanted her to be honest instead of lie. And that's one of them weird things about female sexual nature too, right? It's one of those things where a woman can feel unsafe because what she really did is something that she would feel judged for. So she'd rather you not know. And that's why you don't need to base your trust in a woman off of what she does when you're not around. You know, you base your trust in a woman off of how she treats you when she's in your presence, how she gets on your program, and not necessarily putting too much stock in what her sexual past is, how many dudes she's been with, or, you know, if she's fucked around on you. You know, hopefully she's somebody who hasn't, right? But you treat everybody like they're somewhere in the middle, right? You know, some women haven't, some women have, but you really want to base it more so off of the value that she adds to your life, how she treats you. You know what I mean? You do keep your eyes open, you do set certain boundaries, but you ultimately can't control someone's behavior. And when you create a certain safe space of open communication with a woman, even when it comes into regards to other men that she's been with, outside of you going a little too far with it, like when you have that open dialogue, then it's often easier for a woman to reshape the narratives about her past experiences in the same way with you, in a way that puts you in the best position, in the same way that she has with others, in times where maybe she vilified you or liked someone else a little bit more for that period of time. You can go through that same mental process in that conversation and start shifting preferences. And through doing that, it kind of puts you back into a certain position. It may not be a forever position, because sometimes it is just your turn and not really yours, but it is a tool that you can have in your tool belt. And through doing that, she can often lose that level of taboo and curiosity that she has towards other men, when you can just break the shit down to her. Yeah, this is kind of just how this is. And you see why he did this right here, because this is what type of manipulation that was. And when you understand the game and you can express the game, then you can kind of just take all of the steam out of how a man's running his game, right? Because it's not dirty macking if that's a woman who you really intend to spend some time with and to deal with, and that's who you really are teaching things to, spending time with, to giving some good deed and guidance to, then that's not dirty macking, right? But sometimes you got to have your snatchback game on point. Now, I say this, most women are not worthy of being snatched back. Most women are not worthy of it. But even, let's say you in a drought, shit, sometimes you want to make sure that you know how to have your snatchback game right, because there are times where, let's say you married, let's say you go through some shit in life, let's say you get complacent with your wife, and then y'all get, separated, right? If you get separated, then sometimes these are scenarios in which you can take this information that I'm giving right here and not try to go through the path that I believe sabotages a lot of marriages and a lot of relationships, which is buying too much into the healthy relationship norms and notions that are really often built on the principles of polyamory, and taking these principles that are built on a very gynocentric platform and foundation of psychology, where the intersectional studies and all these different types of psychology that are very gynocentric, in that toxic masculinity is like a commonly used phrase, but toxic femininity is something that people act like they don't even know about. And by understanding this, it kind of puts you into a mind state of understanding that a lot of people are more focused on symmetry than polarity. A lot of people are more focused on communication than actually being attracted to and respecting your partner, right? And a woman feeling that way about you. The polarity of understanding that most women aren't going to truly want a man who they can't look up to, right? And not just be equals with, but look up to. So when you're going through a lot of these therapy sessions or all these other things, oftentimes what happens is you're rewarding bad behavior, right? You're giving this woman a lot of emotional intimacy and vulnerability as validation when things aren't working out, right? Which causes her to respect you less. And when you do that, it causes her to feel like maybe the issues that you've had, or the things that you don't agree on, or things that you're really emotional and you're feminine, so you're going to change in due time. So she's really waiting for you to change who you are to fit what she wants, right? So when you show her that little bit of change, she gets that quick jolt of validation. But that quick jolt of a validation that may make you a little bit more sexually connected for a short period of time is something that will typically end up being twice as bad as it was before. And it kind of becomes more of a masculine submissive or masculine submissive struggle, or a masculine submissive feminine dominant type of situation, where the woman is then in control through however she feels, and your logical mentalities and your natural needs as a man become things that are seen as burdens and chores, and things that are viewed as pressure when you desire these things with a woman. So what you got to understand is that oftentimes I think that a lot of therapy, like couples counseling and therapy is often built with the premise of causing the woman and the man to be in a position where their polarity gets even worse, right? They get even worse off the polarity. The woman loses further respect and attraction for the guy. The guy is trying over and over again to communicate using logic, using reason, or trying to be overly emotionally understanding to a woman who doesn't have any respect for him. Just trying to prove his masculinity through his ability to endure psychological abuse, right? So what I'm saying is it's a neglect, right? Reward good behavior, right? If a woman is showing you that she fucks with you, she cares for you, she down for you, then the best thing that you can often do is to show her that you value that by knowing what she wants, knowing what she needs, right? And being able to say, hey, listen, I appreciate you, right? Let her know that she's appreciated. Very important. Being able to have regular feedback conversations with her, and, having some aftercare to go along with the Dom sessions, having a certain amount of a trajectory. There's a combination, there's a fine line between under promise, over deliver, inadvertent behavior, and leading, right? There's a fine line between all those things. So when you find what that is for you and the way you like to do things, you set certain standards. But in setting those standards, you can reward a woman and validate her when she's doing the things that show you that she cares, or that she desires you, that she respects you, right? When she doesn't, sometimes you got to pull away, and then you might tax her and have her do a little bit. If her cup gets low, you got to know when to take a little step back from being overly demanding, right? So that she doesn't get completely burnt out, right? You have to know how to curb your enthusiasm and not get overly excited about the promises of a woman, because when you expect her to do the things that she says, then she's going to just hit you with I'm a woman, I have a right to change my mind. She could sit there, you can over communicate, and she agrees to everything that you say. Then a couple days later, she can hit you back and say, oh no, this is not what I want. I've experienced it many times, where a woman will even list back to me all the things she likes about what I do and how I move or whatever it is, and then come back around and just say, well, this just isn't for me. I don't think God is happy with this, yada, 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 right? Even though I probably spent way more time reading my Bible and being in depth with my beliefs and being aligned between my beliefs and actions than they have, but these aren't the things that you can just over communicate with a woman and try to explain, because trying to hold a woman accountable or trying to explain something after she decided she doesn't want to fuck with you, it comes off as emotional weakness. It comes off as you're not solid on what you really want and what you're really trying to do, and she just loses respect and further attraction for you. Sometimes she has to have the opportunity to just walk away and not get any energy from you at all when she walks away, or at least to get the energy that she knows that when she comes back, there's going to be a little something that's going to be there for her, whether that's a positive or a negative thing. Just that gives her a certain level of intrigue. It catches her hand in the cookie jar, and when she walks away and she's unable to see you in a weak position as she walks away, then if she doesn't see anyone stronger to go to when she walks away, then she's going to come back to you when she starts to feel uncertain about this next choice. Because most of those issues within her are about being double-minded. Sometimes it's a gentleman gigolo complex. Sometimes it's being uncertain about what she really wants, but not trusting anyone enough to follow their program or to follow their lead completely. So, these are all things that occur, and this is just my closer review, the Snatchback game. It's Coach Brodie. I'm out.